Alright, this is Eternal Blade and welcome to part 42 of the tutorial. This is the final image. You can actually see it in Max. I did do a little bit of touch-up work just on this little edge right here because there were some black artifacts that I didn't know where they're coming from. Could be something with specularity or something like that, but I'll show you how to do that later on. So let's hop right into the textures. I'm going to do a brief overview of all the textures. Well, not really brief, but in depth. Telling you all the settings I changed, what they do, and how they affect the final image. So let's get started. So you can open up your scene, and I'm not really going to do much in the scene as I already have my textures applied, but it's basically you just click your texture and you drag it to where you want it. So pretty easy. And I'll tell you the few tricks that I made to get everything to work right. But before we begin this, let's do a few simple things. So you're going to want to add a couple UVW modifiers or else your textures won't come out quite right. So you're going to want to add one to the wall here. You're just going to want to add a UVW modifier and make it a box. Alright? That should solve your problems there. I've already done it, so I'm going to delete it. And you're going to want to do the same thing for the door as well as this little rug thing on the bottom. Everything else should be good to go UVW wise. Okay, so once you do that, we can hop right in. So to begin with, let's talk about the, let's see, what is this? The towel. So this is the material for both the towel and the bath mat. So if you see in here, it's got kind of rough edges and whatnot. It looks kind of soft and towel-like. So the way we achieve that is, let's move these over here, basically a couple of ways, but the most, or the easiest way at least, is to put a map in the displace modifier. By the way, these are V-Ray materials. This is all for V-Ray. So let me just show you here. So the map I used looks like this. What I did was I googled a picture. So let's go over here, I guess. Towel images, and I believe I used, let's see, I changed the size to this. This is the one I used. And I simply desaturated it in Photoshop and raised the contrast. And I'll upload this to my photo bucket pretty soon, so don't worry about that if you don't have Photoshop, or you can also do it in GIMP, the free version, basically. So you put that in the display slot, and then you set use real world coordinates. And what this allows you to do is basically just scale it to the correct size on here. So if you click show map and viewport, you can see how we have the kind of texture here. If you don't see it, you need to increase this or decrease this until you do. I set mine at 0.5 centimeters because something went wrong with the scaling over the time period that I started this tutorial and finished it. So, but generally that should be probably around 10 to 15 for this particular texture. But that's the displacement map, and that'll give it the what looks like fuzzy things on it, or little individual threads. Now, typically in a towel, you have lighter parts, and then you have darker parts. You can see that here. On the edges, insides are nice and dark, but on the edges they're kind of just a little bit lighter. And that's due to a fall-off map. So this also is going to run our color. So you put this in the diffuse slot, and it's just a fall-off map. So it's right wherever the F's are. Here it is, fall-off. And you're going to want basically two colors. You're going to want your main color, which is a little bit darker. Here I've chosen kind of an eggshell-ish color. You can make it whatever color you want, blue, red, green, and as dark or as light as you want. And your second color is going to be the lighter color, so basically what's going to be shown on the edges. And this will create kind of a soft appearance on your towel. And you're going to want to leave all the other settings the same except for the mix curve. Generally, it starts off like this. What you're going to want to do is right click on this point and go to Bezier corner, and a handle will appear, and you just want to drag it all the way down. This will basically give it a fall off to where it'll start hard and then slowly fall off to white at the edges, and that'll give you the fuzzy appearance. Alright, let's see here. I don't think I changed anything else. Nope, that was the entire towel material. I did change the subdivisions and the reflection to 16 just to see if I could get those artifacts to go away, but it didn't help. So you don't need to do that, I don't think. And then that's the final part of the towel. And it looks nice and fuzzy. You can increase the displacement if you want for a fuzzier towel, decrease it for a harder towel, or use whatever kind of displaced map you want. Okay, next let's go on to the chrome material. Now you can't actually see it in my render, but it's on the shower bar on the top right hand side of this. But just in case you guys want to render it out, I've added this material as well. It's actually pretty simple. What we have is a diffuse color of pretty dark, about 128-ish, and then we have Fresnel reflections turned on and the index of refraction set to 100. This basically changes how the reflections are. They fade off in a distance, but 100, the bigger the number, the less it actually does, I believe. So that kind of makes it almost nullifies it, but it gives it just a little bit more of a look that'll make it more realistic. And in your reflection slot, you want to have an almost white value. So about 210 is pretty good. This will mean it reflects almost everything around it, and your glossiness is set to 1, so it doesn't blur anything. It's basically really sharp, like you'd expect chrome to be. I also, let's see, in the bump map, have a small noise map. What this does is, when you see chrome, there's always kind of large waves in the image. It's never perfectly straight. You can see it on motorcycles and whatnot, and that's what this map does. So I put a noise map in here. All the settings are the same except for the size. You might have to play with it depending on your scene, but my size is 1. These are actually very large waves if you look at them. So the colors are the same and whatnot, and this will just give it the nice generalized wave into it. And that's really all there is for the chrome material. You can assign that right away. Next, I'm going to save this one for last. The wall material. So I started off with the diffuse, which is just a very light eggshell, almost a combination between eggshell and white. And I changed the glossiness down to 0.9, as well as the reflections to about 5. This is because it is slightly reflective, just not very much. And then I came down here and I used a bump map. Let me show you that. And it looks like this. This is just basically a stucco image. I found it on Google. I desaturated it and increased the contrast, just like all the other things. So and this is tileable, by the way. I found it. So just plug it in here and use your real world scale. And mine is set at 0.8. And you can see about how it looks. Let me actually come on here. You can see about the thickness that I have. So you can see all the details and whatnot. And I set the bump to about 30, which in my scene is pretty good. You can see over here how the bump on the walls next to the towel and the light switch, you can clearly see it and it kind of fades off. And that's basically exactly what it looks like in real life. So that was a pretty good job there. And I believe that was all there is to this material as well. There aren't really many intense materials in this except for this one dark metal. And that'll be the last thing I cover. Alright, next we are going to cover the tile floor. But I will do that in part 43, as I'm running out of time now.